All right, so Michael, let's jump into this conversation. You and I started to have a great conversation off air that I want to take on air. And so before we jump into any type of details, I always like to start off so the audience can have some context around how long you've been in the business and what market you sell real estate in, so they can have a foundation under which we're going to have this conversation. So how long in the business and where do you sell?
Sure thing, Brandon. So I sell primarily in Orange County and Brevard County, Florida. And I've really only been going full on as a realtor since the beginning of this year, more so. Prior
Yeah.
to that, I had years of experience doing one-off listings, but more so as an investor, doing wholesaling and flips. But only really for the past 5 months, I've been full on realtor trying to scale this business up.
Love it. And I was telling you just a second ago, that's exactly why, Michael, I wanted to have you on the show, is talking about what does that first 6 to 12 months really look like? What are the things that you've struggled with? What are the things that you finding are working? And we're going to unpack all of that today. So really full time in the business of selling real estate for the past 5 months. And how long ago did you join our inner circle? How long has it been since you've joined our coaching program?
I joined a little bit before that. I
Yeah,
think I joined the last day of October.
that's what I thought.
And I read some content. I listened to some content. I got into it, but I probably started getting more into it beginning of January. And then what really got me going more was the first prospecting challenge. I believe that was in February.
Yeah, makes sense. So let me just ask you this. When it comes to our business of selling real estate, there's a lot of different beliefs on how you can go out there and acquire business. Some of those have you waiting around for business. Some of those has you going out there and paying companies to give you leads. We focus on building your sales skill so that you can go out there and build a business that you're in control of. What made you choose that? Because for most agents, that's the path of most resistance. And so there's a lot of other shiny objects that you can go chase out there that people would lead you to believe that would be easier than picking up the phone and calling people you don't know and dealing with rejection. Why is it that you chose this path to building your business?
So number one, I would say it is the quickest results. It's not quick. It's not quick by any means, but by doing other forms of marketing, it's more of a slow trickle before that comes into effect. It's predictable. Like over time, when you build your business, you know, if I do this much activity, I'll get this much output out of it. And number three, I also think it's the most helpful for building skills, right? We're in real estate, we're in a people business. So if you want to get better at dealing with people and helping people, what better way to do it than by constantly being in communication with them?
Yeah.
So overall, I would say not quick by any means. It can be quick, but it might take time. Overall, it's the speed. It's the quickest way to building a predictable business, and it's the way to improve your skills the most.
Yeah, I would 100%. The only other thing I'd add maybe is just the profit margins in this type of business versus having to give up so much of your upside to acquire a client. This is super profitable too. And as far as the time thing that you brought up, I totally get what you're trying to say. When you look at, okay, what is the turnaround time from a direct outbound business versus an inbound business? What you mean by that, because there's context around time. When you say quick, you have to say, okay, you have to compare it against something. So in terms of, call it, if you're going to buy, if you're going to do Google advertising, you're going to buy leads from like a Commissions Inc. platform, that might take you 12 months to convert a lead. In comparison to that, this is much, much faster. Within 90 days, you could be fully in production. That's kind of what you meant, yeah?
Definitely. And I've actually used a platform before that sent leads over, and you're better off, in my experience, generating them yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so that's why we focus on helping agents build this type of business. So let's get into that for a second. So you were in the investing side of the business. You came over to the sales side of the business. So what in the, like when you first got started, did you believe it was going to be easier, harder? Did you think it was going to be something that it wasn't? Like, was there this moment, Michael, where you said, man, I didn't realize it was going to be like this? And I think a lot of agents have that moment. Did you have something similar?
I wouldn't say that I thought it was going to be easy, but I still have moments, even weekly, where I'm like, wow, this is hard.
Yeah.
You know? Like, but I mean, in anything difficult that you're doing as you're building it up, you have to realize that moment's going to come. And then when you push through it, that's when good things start happening for you.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Anything that is difficult is typically worth it. Right. And then anything that's being perceived or sold as easy typically is not. So let's kind of break down some of the things that I've asked you to do in order to build this business. So when we look at your lead generation, you right now are focused on mostly an outbound prospecting based business, going primarily after listings. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So right now, what lead pillars or sources are you working the most?
Primarily for sale by owners and expireds now. And then I used to do probates previously. I'm looping probates back in again.
Yeah,
But
good for
most of
you.
my business right now and appointments and leads generated is for sale by owner and expired.
Yeah, awesome. Do you have the numbers that you can kind of break down? Because again, that's why I wanted to have you on here. When we look at someone who's early on their, what I would call pipeline building phase, that's kind of where you're at in the business. Can you share any numbers with the audience that they might be able to relate to? So for an example, do you know like how many contacts you make per day and what that typically looks like in a month and how many leads that usually generates and how many listing appointments that leads you on, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure thing. I need to get better with this.
Sure, we all do.
When you're building a business, one of the most important things is to track your numbers. And I am not doing it to the level I should be. However, I would say on a less busy week, I'm doing 100 contacts or more per week. On a busier week, not to make an excuse, I can do more even with a busier week. Right now, I'm doing at least 50.
Got it. Okay, great. So 50 to
Better,
100 new conversations per week.
correct.
Got it. Okay, keep going.
Out of those conversations, I would say right now it's about 1 out of 7 is a lead. And then I don't even want to guesstimate the appointment conversion ratio because I really don't know it right now. But
Yeah.
but I'm at the skill level right now that with that amount of activity, I can generate anywhere from around 3 appointments per week, let's say.
Yeah, that's what when I was looking at your numbers, that's kind of what we're looking at, right? So you're able to generate 3 appointments per week, which is really good. Really, really good. I mean, if you think about an agent that doesn't have an outbound business, that's the argument that I would make is how many appointments are you setting per week with these other avenues? And most agents would tell you and I both, if they're on this conversation with us, I'm not getting 3, 6, 9, 12 appointments per month with what I'm doing. That's what you mean by the quickest. Yeah. You want to add something to that?
Yeah, exactly. And this is a relatively new development over the past, I would say, like month and a half, where my skills really started to kick in. I mean,
Yeah.
this whole time I'm doing role plays every single morning at like 7:15 a.m. with my partner. We're working over not just the listing presentation, which is another avenue, but we're going over all the different scripts for sale by owner and expireds. We're also working on objections back and forth. And calling pretty much every day consistently while
Yeah.
watching the material you have, combining that together, I'm finally reaching a point where I feel very comfortable on the phone and I can get the appointment in a way that's very efficient.
Yeah, I love it. And that you bring me up right to my next point. You know, there's still a lot of people that are in this business of selling real estate who either A, don't believe, or B, haven't accepted the fact that this is in fact a sales business. Why do you think that people fight that so badly?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. I think most people that cold call, they might try it once or twice, or maybe like twice a month. And they're not doing enough value to build a pipeline, but also on top of that, they're not doing enough to build the skills. So when you're calling these people that are getting so many phone calls, if you don't have good skills, it's going to be very difficult for you to stand out. But if you're going through your program, I'm in a position now to where when I call someone, since I've been doing it so consistently and working in the reverse selling framework, they're basically saying in the middle of the conversation, so I've gotten like 30 calls, Michael, but for some reason, I don't know why I'm still talking to you.
Yeah.
Or asking for an appointment, they'll be like, Michael, I've gotten tons of agents asking for the appointment, trying to force it on me, but I don't know. I for some reason, I'm going to meet with you. So over time, you just start to build the skill level to where you stand out.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally agree. So let's actually kind of break that down, right? So when we look at there's really three major parts of a sales business that we have to look at. We have to look at initiating the conversation and generating a lead, whether that be over the phone or at the door, right? Being proactive. Then we have lead follow-up. How do we turn those leads into actual appointments themselves? And then what do we do when we go on the appointment to acquire a new client? These are the three areas, Michael, I want to break down with you and talk to you about what are some of the things that you've learned over the past 5 or 6 months that's helped you in each area. So let's first talk about the art and science of selling over the telephone that's allowing you to have good conversations where maybe in the past you were not able to. What are maybe one or two skills that you've learned that have helped you have better conversations over the phone?
I would say number one, understanding the framework of the conversation, the different parts to it, understanding the reverse selling methodology of overcoming sales resistance and giving the prospect autonomy.
Mm.
And then I would say just getting enough experience so you're prepared for any conversation, for any way the conversation may go, being prepared for it.
Yeah. So, I'll put you on the spot here. Maybe we can figure this out together. When you talk about the reverse selling framework for people that aren't in it, they haven't learned it yet. Could you maybe give them an example of what that means, and maybe what is it that you say on a call that helps you have good conversations versus maybe some of the sales scripts you've used in the past that haven't worked? Like, can you give people a comparison?
Sure thing. So I'll start at a high level. The reverse selling framework is basically working with a person's psychology to in turn help them sell their home, right?
That's right.
So they're getting a lot of phone calls from agents who are using very pushy sales tactics, like saying, I'm the best agent ever. You're going to make more money with me. You have to work with me. And prospects are even telling me this. So what the reverse selling framework does is it allows you to overcome the initial sales resistance with, I guess, the first thing that happens on the call is the pattern interrupt. Basically, once a salesperson calls that prospect and they figure out that you're a realtor, that prospect initially, their initial reaction is, I want to hang up, I want to hang up, I want to hang up. One of the main pattern interrupts people use is, hey, this is Michael, I'm a realtor. And before you hang up, when you say that, it's different from what the prospect is hearing over time, like on all these phone calls. So it separates yourself. And then from there, after the pattern interrupt, you're asking their permission to continue the call. So you're interrupting their mind right now that's going crazy saying, oh, another salesperson. And then you're giving them autonomy and you're asking them permission to continue the call. At that point, once they allow you to continue the call, you can then go into questioning, and it's more so in a relaxed, consenting phone call, if you will, where both people are now having a conversation versus you forcing one.
Nailed it. I mean, I couldn't say it any better. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's the difference between being invited to have a conversation versus forcing a conversation, where it's this constant back and forth tug of war. And I think that's what most agents think of when they think of cold calling or prospecting. They cringe because it's like, I've tried it and I just get yelled at. It's like you're getting yelled at because of your approach. We are responsible, and I know you know this, we are responsible for how people respond to us. And a lot of people forget that. Sales is the study of the art and science of communication. Communication, the responsibility of that, it's not just what we say, it's how what we say is being perceived by the other person that matters. And I think a lot of agents that are untrained, they don't understand that. So because of this is helping you to have good conversations when you reach out to people. Now, talk to us about the importance of follow-up and what that looks like if you have a strong process for follow up versus not. Because I think a lot of agents lose opportunities, they fall through the cracks because they do the initial prospecting, but they have no system for following up and they don't set as many appointments as they could because they're losing these leads after they've generated them on the first call.
Sure thing. So for the rule of prospecting, I mean, 80% of your appointments are going to come from follow-up. And follow-up is the most crucial step, mostly because very few agents actually are doing it effectively. So while prospects have initial resistance on your first phone call, and they may not take the appointment on the first time you speak with them, as you build the relationship and as time goes on, there are less other than the fact you're getting more comfortable with them, there are less agents reaching out to that prospect. So they built the relationship with you, there's less competition, and eventually you can get the appointment that way.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, and I think a lot of agents overcomplicate that, but I would say that 80-90% of the effectiveness through lead follow-up is the voice-to-voice phone call. Yes, email is important. Yes, you can text them. Yes, you can send them stuff in the mail. But are you finding that to be true for yourself, that the vast majority of your success through lead follow-up is through a voice-to-voice conversation?
100%. Voice conversation is always the best way. The email and sending your resume as we do, as well as sending a letter, which I still haven't fully implemented yet, which I think is important too. Those things separate you.
Sure.
But always on the phone conversation, that will be, in my opinion, what keeps you in the game and gets you potentially to win their business in the long term.
That's right. I mean, the mailer isn't going to set the appointment,
No.
right? The email is not going to set the appointment. Those things are just to help you with top of mind awareness, but that doesn't get the person to change their behavior and agree to meet with you. And I think a lot of agents are just so passive, right? And so they don't get that many appointments. All right, so let's shift to the listing presentation. I think this is where, in my opinion, the most important thing, because eventually, regardless of how an agent is generating their leads or appointments and all the debate that people have, like, oh, cold calling is a thing of the past. You should be doing this or doing that. Who cares, right? All that matters is, are you getting in front of enough people to hit the goals that you have? So when you get to the listing appointment, my belief is that this is the most important part of an agent's business if they're really going to scale. So I think that for most agents, if they're being honest, what they do is they don't have a system or a strategy other than, I'm going to show up, I'm going to throw up, and I'm going to pray that this person hires me, right? That's what they do. And so can you walk us through maybe what you've learned and what your process looks like at the listing presentation?
Sure thing. So that's something I basically follow the program point for point. You start off with the agenda and you go through what you're going to talk about throughout the whole meeting. And what that does basically is we use the analogy, it turns the light on in the haunted house. So when you sit down with the prospect, they're kind of nervous about how this meeting is going to go originally, like what's going to happen next.
Sure.
Based on the agenda, you kind of break down what's actually going to happen, and immediately that lowers their resistance and increases their comfortability level. You also kind of get commitment with them through that process to where at the end of the meeting, pretty much you're going to agree to figure out the next steps, which is important as well.
That's right.
And throughout the rest of it too, I'll talk more high level about the rest of it. Pretty much you're differentiating yourself with your market knowledge and sales strategies that very few other realtors are doing. When I go into a listing presentation now, I don't win all of them. Some of them are very competitive. Some of them, literally 10 people are going in there. There was one recently where I was competing against 9 other realtors. At the end of the meeting, I didn't get the listing, or at least I don't think. I haven't heard from the guy. But he told me that right now I'm in the top 2 and I'm right there and I might be selected. There are things I can improve on it over time and get better. But with my new listing presentation, if there's 10 people and you're consistently in the top 2, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a part of the presentation that you feel like is the most impactful? What I mean by that, Michael, is if you look at all the parts, right? You've got setting the agenda, you've got the pricing presentation, you've got the value proposition presentation, you've got the net sheet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a part of that presentation where you really shine that you feel, when I do this, Brandon, I feel like it's making the biggest impact at the appointment, which allows me to acquire and win listings?
Sure thing. I would say there's two where the tide starts to shift. I would say number one is the pricing presentation because you're showing your knowledge, you're going over things the seller might not know, but
That's
also
right.
hold their hand through the whole process. And then where it starts to shift, and there's even more after this that's beneficial as well, is talking about the market data, like actually
Mm.
going over what's happening in the market, because that presents you in a light where you are the expert. And it's great to do also because you should know the market you're selling in anyway. Like going through the prep for your listing presentation actually has made me more of an expert in the markets that I work in. So it's beneficial in that way too. I do a better job with the client.
Yeah, it probably gives you a lot more confidence going into that conversation, right? Because that's really what the seller's buying is the confidence that you have to sell their home, right? So let me ask you this: through just the last, I would say, I don't know, 5 or 6 months that you've really been diving into the work that you and I have been doing together, if a brand new agent were to reach out to you today and they were just to say, hey, I saw this interview you did with Brandon on his YouTube channel, what are maybe one or two pieces of advice you could give me as I get started in my career? Like, what would you tell that agent?
That's a great question. I would say number one, I would say, I mean, the most important thing, if you want the best results in the quickest amount of time and get where you want to be, is probably find a coach that you trust that's done that's doing what you want to do.
Mm,
I would say number one. And then number two, be prepared to work and overcome a lot of adversity in the process.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, do a lot more work. I think a lot of agents underestimate the amount of volume or amount of work that is required to accomplish the goals that these agents have. I mean, it still blows me away at the level of people's ambition and the lack of their work ethic to match that ambition. It's like something I've never seen before. Outside of real estate, you don't see that big of a discrepancy. You know exactly what I'm talking about. All these agents have huge aspiration. They want this type of income, they want this type of house, they want this type of watch, they want a Ferrari, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then if you shadow them, if you actually follow them around and you look at their work ethic, you just start to scratch your head a bit. Where do you feel is the disconnect in our industry between these two things, work ethic and ambition?
I would say people don't realize what they're getting into.
Mm,
I So humans always, we generally take the path of least resistance, right? So it's
sure,
not surprising at all. The harder something is, the road traveled going to be harder. People aren't going to walk on that road.
sure.
So once something gets difficult, and if someone feels lost, they're going to stop walking. But what helps me keep going is the fact that I have a framework that I'm confident in, and I know that by using that framework, I'm going to get there in the end. So I would say, to answer your question about the problems, like why this happens so much, is because this is a really hard industry. It's a very competitive industry. Most people that get in don't know what they're getting into. And when they start, totally different from what they thought it would be, and they don't have a path to how to get to where they want to be. So
Yeah,
they stop.
yeah. No, well said. Let me ask you this. I interview you. Let's just pretend for a second. We fast forward 12 months from now. I have you back on the show. What would you be explaining to the audience that had occurred when you look at your future self? Walk us through what that would have looked like.
What the dream may, activity wise, production wise, or both?
Yeah, like if you when you as you look ahead in your business, right? And we're talking 12 months from now. What do you believe will occur over the next 12 months that you talk about in a podcast episode 12 months from now that you've now been able to accomplish?
So the way I've been viewing this whole journey is a transformation.
Mm,
Number one, from activity wise, I am doing well now, and I'm starting to get incredibly disciplined and skillful. But I've noticed a progression every single month. I'm doing a little more, getting a little better, getting a little better. So in 12 months, I'd like to be much better in that regard, from being the dream person that's able to every day block out 8, 11 a.m. and do the 30 contacts every day, no matter what during that time, not let any outside business take away from that productivity. I want to be generating at least one listing appointment per week from that activity. And I want to be on a path to building a team and creating a sustainable business to where I'm not doing everything myself anymore.
Love it. I love it. And you said one listing appointment. You mean one listing taken per week,
One
correct?
listing taken per week, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. That's great. And I don't know if we've ever talked about that, but that's like the perfect model, right? Is to set 5 appointments per week. So setting one appointment per day, going on 3 of those appointments and taking one. Super, super sustainable, healthy
Very
business.
doable, too.
Very doable.
Very
And
doable.
50 deals in your market, like what type of income would that represent if you were to close 50 deals in your market?
So right now, what I'm working on is also increasing the deal size.
Sure.
As of now, I mean, I would say it's got to be a huge range here, but between 300 and 500
Yeah.
thousand dollars a year,
Yep.
and most probably closer to that $500,000 figure.
Yeah, makes total sense. And that's why that business model for me makes so much sense to help agents get to, because that puts you in like the top 1% in your area, right? I mean, go ahead.
Cold calling also, I mean, you can target who you want to target. So you have
That's right.
yeah, you have the ability to actually choose the deal size you want to work with.
Yeah.
So what you can do is, let's say your average deal size, you're doing 50 deals per year, the average deal size is $10,000 per deal. You don't even need to necessarily increase the activity to double your income. You can just really focus on deals that are now $20,000 per deal.
It's a great point. And it's a
Yeah.
decision you get to make with the business model that we have that you can't duplicate that with any other business model. You don't have the decision to do that the way that we do. So listen, man, I really appreciate this, right? I've got, I don't know, I took, let's see, 2.5 pages of notes. I don't even know if you recognize that. Hopefully the audience paid attention, and I would love to do that. I'd love to have you back in a year from now. As you're building your pipeline right now, you're in that process of really building this foundation that will manifest into a large production, large income business. Maybe we have you back in a year, but until then, I appreciate you pouring back into the community.
I would love that. I would love that. And thank you. Thank you for having me on today. I really appreciate everything you do.
Absolutely, Michael. We'll talk to you soon, all right, brother?